Welcome back, everybody. It is Free Therapy Wednesday. You know, each week we like to check in with our friend Dr. Laura Saunders for our midweek mental health boost. She sets a positive example, Kara.
Yes, she does. And that's especially important today on Set a Good Example Day. Dr. Laura Saunders is a psychologist at the Institute of Living. And today we're talking about leading by example, especially when it comes to our kids. Thanks for being here, Doc.
Hello, friends. Happy Wednesday. And yes, today is National Set a Good Example Day. Who even knew this existed, but I found it. And now I really want to talk about it.
Yeah, you say what is the saying? Say what I do.
Do what I say.
Do what I say.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Not as I do.
Which I think every parent feels that way sometimes. Actually, it's kind of like a lot of pressure if we think, I mean, psychologically, how much do our kids just learn from watching us?
So yes, that is kind of an expression, do as I say, not as I do. But that is, in fact, the opposite of how children learn. And yes, it is a lot of pressure. But remember, the concept that we talk about this on Kara's Cures, is the concept of the good enough parent, right? You don't have to be perfect, but you can't be totally negligent either. You just have to be good enough, which in my mind means about greater than 50%, like 50, 60%. So you need to do the right things. You need to model how you want your children to behave, because that's what sets their values and their foundation.
Yeah, you say children primarily learn by observing and imitating the behaviors of adults.
Right. So you can talk all you want, but children really learn through that observation. That's far more powerful.
So what happens when, we messed up and we...
Speaking from experience.
Well, I mean, I don't really let you around my kids very often. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I mean, we all, maybe you lost it, you screamed, you yelled, you didn't handle yourself well, or, something. I mean, I think it's a lot of pressure for parents. So what if your kids started imitating something you didn't want them to imitate?
Well, there's actually a lot of power in the repair, right? We're not expecting anyone to be perfect. Parenting's the hardest job in the world. And when you make a mistake, or when you do something that you have tremendous guilt about or regret, you repair it. You make an apology. You talk about it directly. You say, listen, I handled it this way, and I really don't feel good about myself, and I want to handle it differently, right? The repair is so important. And so people think, oh, I messed up, I'll just move on from it. But actually, the act of repairing is what strengthens a relationship.
Completely agree. I think there's nothing better than a good apology and setting that example that you have admitted that you've done something wrong.
And you care.
And you care.
Yeah, versus why are you making such a big deal about it? Okay, so, right. Which is kind of, the old school was, I'm the adult, I get to do what I want. And that, what you're saying is, it just doesn't work, because on the reverse, if we can show what it's like to resolve conflict in a positive way or anything like that, that is a really positive influence. Yeah,
that builds character and values, right? Honesty, kindness, respect, responsibility. It really builds character and values. It also shows what a positive influence you can be on social development. Seeing parents engage in positive social interactions, it's like helping or resolving conflicts. Really looking at what a positive influence you can be on your child's social development.
It's like when I grew up, there was no alcohol in the house. And then I met Paul, and there was alcohol in the house. And he was like, well, this is just how, we just have a drink a day. That's just how I grew up. I was modeling my parents. And I was like, oh, well, that's not something I did. But even something similar, like something like that, you model your parents doing something, and you take on that habit, and then you got to deal with that.
Yeah, but at that point, you have something to compare it to, right? Yeah. So that's a beautiful example, is you had a point of comparison. You said, well, that's not the way that I grew up, so maybe I'll try this, but it might not work for me. We're not, it's okay to try on behaviors or habits and then make that comparison feel like it doesn't work for you. So that's a beautiful example of that comparison that happens in the way that you were raised, and then getting other experiences and saying, what, that doesn't feel right for me, or no, actually that feels better for me in some examples.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So also you say it's really how we build trust and respect, because we want our kids to be respectful. I think all parents want that. But when they see us acting in accordance with our words and values, that's really how we do it?
Right. When children see their parents acting consistently, in accordance with their words, right? That the words have meaning. I always say, look at how words and behavior matches, right? And again, we're not looking for perfect matching. We're looking for good enough, greater than 50, 60%. So your words and your behavior need to match, and that's what fosters respect for the guidance that you offer.
So here's a question. Parents wonder about this all the time. You know, they always say we shouldn't fight in front of our kids, and I don't think anyone wants to. But when parents do fight in front of their kids, because sometimes that happens, what does that do to the kid as far as this whole conversation about a role model?
I'll tell you what it does.
Right. So you can have disagreements, right? And disagreements often are over, small things. You can have disagreements. What you're showing is that you can manage a conflict. And sometimes, honestly, you need to take space from that conflict and then come back at a later time. And then let your kids know, I know you saw your other parent and I disagreeing on something, but I want you to know that I still love them and we're still working on this. And, this is how we fixed it, right? Because sometimes they don't always see the resolution because problems are developed and resolved in the same moment.
Yeah.
Dr. Laura Saunders, a plethora of information. We can't thank you enough for your sage advice.
Have a great day. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, we're going to get a deeper dive. We'll talk about the parents fighting and other questions you may have on the Kara's Cures podcast.
I hated when my parents fought.
I know. I didn't like it either, and I think that's a good distinction. You can have a disagreement, but we should show people how we resolved it. Because,
their way of resolving it
fighting over how the dishwasher got loaded or something is kind of stupid. All right. Anyway, still ahead on this Wednesday.